What is up, guys? Taft Darnington here for another 19's itemization video. This video we're going to be going over Rogue. For the purpose of consistency, we assume it is better to stat stack as opposed to stat smooth. This is situational and depends on your set as a whole. All items are BIS and are in order of preference. We assume armor values and the uniqueness variable on classic DB are accurate. Items are listed in in-game order. So, Rogue is probably one of the most popular classes at 19. And in my opinion, it's the most fun. I've always played 19 Rogue. Every server I've been on, I've made a 19 Rogue. I just absolutely love it. And as a 19 Rogue, as opposed to other classes, your biggest advantage is the amount of burst damage that you can do. You're great as an assist. You're great as you're great as a flag carrier when you have sprint. You can do a lot with a rogue, but the biggest thing that they have is burst damage, and because of this, their primary role in Warsong is returning the flag. So let's go through the gear. Helm, everybody starts off with green tinted goggles. This is from engineering. 8 stam, 7 spirit. The other option would be the red Defies mask, which I enjoy wearing just for aesthetics. It doesn't have armor value, so you are unable to Libram it. Which really, like, if I could Libram it, I would probably wear this. Just because the style points are so big. I'd probably wear this if I could Libram it, but sadly it doesn't have armor, so I really don't use it all that much. If I have a healer, I might wear it, or if I just want to have fun. There's also the hooded cowl. This is from the Dangerous Quest in Hillsbrad for Horde players. You can also pick up the Bow of Plunder there. The highest top-end bow in the bracket. Whenever you do that quest, it's really not much XP, but I believe it requires level 19 to do. It has armor. You just use it as like if you want like a fire resist helm or something, or if you just like the aesthetic of it. And then eventually you'll upgrade to the lucky fishing hat, and this is in every guide. You know, you get it at the STV fishing tournament, which is every Sunday at 2 server time. This is whenever the ZG patch comes in. For Librams, personally, what I do is I go on my green tinted goggles and on my first pair of leggings of the Fang, I go 100 HP. And then I'll get a second pair of leggings of the Fang, and then I'll get 8 agility on that for like an attack power set. And then whenever I get lucky fishing hat, I get 8 agility on it. But like you see, we've got Constitution here, the 100 HP next to fishing hat, and Constitution on green tinted. That's because of our assumption that it's better to stat stack as opposed to stat smooth. However, whenever you've got lucky fishing hat, I find it better to stat smooth. But yeah. For Neckpiece, you start out with Tarnish Silver Necklace. This drops off of the Graves and Zul'Farrak. The voice amplification modulator, this requires a higher level of engineering to create, and it's pretty expensive. Reduces effective silence, or increases your resistance to silence effects by 7%. 2 delicate Arcanite converters, so it's going to be fairly expensive. Both of these are just purely aesthetic. The Warsong Reward Neck Scouts Medallion or Sentinels Medallion, 6 agility, 2 stamina. This is rewarded at Honored with Warsong, and this will come out whenever the BWL comes out. So it's not out at the moment. And those are the only options for neck. For shoulders, we have Bar Mantle. and you get this from the Glowing Shard out of Wailing Caverns. That's off the Murloc boss at the end of the escort. You'll get the Glowing Shard, and you'll go to Ratchet, the guy next to the Flight Master. It's kind of RP-ish. It doesn't show a quest. You have to talk to him, say, what can you tell me about this shard? He tells you, then you take it to the top of the Wailing Cavern summit, and then she will send you either to Thunderbluff Horde or to, is it Darnassus for the Night Elf City for Alliance. 6 intellect, 3 stam, 30 armor. It's the only thing with stam on it, and so most people will wear that. Then we also show scouting spalders. It's really any leather shoulder piece that you want. It really matter. It's really comes down to aesthetically pleasing, which one you prefer more of the leather shoulders. And there is an argument that the armor difference, so whenever you go from cloth to leather, you're doubling the armor. And same thing when you go from leather to mail, it doubles. From mail to plate, it doubles again. So there is an argument that the doubling of armor, which should be about 30, see, I think that's at 60, yeah, it's like 59, basically 60, and then Talbar will show just slightly more. Oh no, it's 30. For some reason I thought it would be 35, but yeah, it's 30. So it doubles it, and it can be argued that the amount, that 30 armor difference, will end up reducing total damage taken over the course of 1200 health more than you would have from 3 stam. So basically, if you assume like 80% of the damage you take in 19 Warsong Gulch is physical damage, and you would say like, 0.8 times 1200 would get you something like 900 or so. You say that's the amount of damage that you would take, and then you would want to multiply by the effect of 30 armor on it, and then you would compare, is that amount greater than 30? If it is, then the leather shoulders would be better. But of course, it's completely dependent on your assumption of the amount of damage you take. And obviously, the more healing you have, the more the scouting shoulders will lean towards the argument of being better. So it is something, whenever you see somebody wearing like leather or mail shoulders, like, just know that there is an argument for it. I show Fortitude of the Scourge and Might of the Scourge. We're not sure yet how Blizzard's going to roll these enchants out, but we'll just show them to you. Fortitude of the Scourge, 16 stam, 100 armor. Might of the Scourge, 26 attack power, 1% crit. These are off Saf and an axe. That's the second to last boss, the Frost Dragon. And we're not too sure whether it's even going to be possible, or how, like, what the mechanics are going to be for actually getting this on a 19. It may be possible to get it on Talbar if it's tradable through window. And then if it's not tradable through window, and this is kind of where it gets weird, because if it's not tradable through a window, then the reason that would be true is because the item itself is bound to your character and can't go to like a non-bounded item. And then also it would mean that when you enchant an item, it would create a bind as well. So not entirely sure whether or not these are going to be possible, but basically if they are going to be possible and you're looking to buy one, the Fortitude of the Scourge is arguably the better one, because it's 16 stam and 100 armor, which is just really big. I mean, stam is always considered to be better in PvP, but 26 attack power, 1% crit is also really, really nice. But the reason Fortitude is going to be the easier one to get and arguably the better one, is because there's only going to be like 4 tanks in the raid who are actually going to use this. And arguably they're not even going to be using it because they would rather use the attack power and crit for threat. So these are going to come up for sale much sooner and for much less than Might of the Scourge. If you think about Might of the Scourge, how many people are going to be wanting this? It's going to be like 15 people in the raid are going to want this as opposed to Fortitude. And then if you include the tanks, then you're talking like basically 20 people out of the raid are going to be wanting Might of the Scourge. And in that case, no one would want the Fortitude other than PvP. But at that point, when you're clearing SAF, PvP is basically out of the window at that point. Everyone's already ranked and everyone's already exalted with Battlegrounds, so just keep that in mind. Might of the Scourge will probably be 3 times the price of Fortitude. Okay, for the Cloak, Sentry Cloak is the #1 choice, hands down. It's got the biggest, best stats, 5 stam, 4 agility. This is a BOE off the auction house. It's really nothing comes close to this. I don't know what else to say really about other. I mean, like, it's so good. Literally nothing comes close. There's also the glowing lizard scale cloak. This is off the Kodo, Lightning Kodo scum. I think it is out of Wailing Caverns. 6 agility, 2 spirit, and then we also show the Firebane cloak. This is a BOE off the auction house, 5 stam, 5 fire resist. And for enchants, I know a lot of people think that they want to go like 3 agility on it, and I would really advise against that. I would say you always need to go for greater resistance to cloak. Let's get that pulled up. That's +5 all to, or that's +5 resistance to all schools of magic. It's really not that expensive. That's maybe like a 6 gold enchant at most. What's so key about this is it's the only place where you can pick up resistance for your 19. And you might think, oh, 5 resistance, who cares? Well, it's not that much. Well, it's a lot when you go from 0 to 5. It's infinitely better than 0. So, and it's really the only place you get to pick up resistances at 19, other than your racial bonus. But yeah, it's like 5 resistance on Sentry Cloak, definitely the way to go. And if you wanted like an agi stat cloak, then you would get glowing lizard scale and enchant that with 3 agility, so that you've got like a cloak that's 9 agility. Would be like 5 more agility than your sentry, and you could use that for like your attack power set. And then Firebane cloak, and you could do like a shadow resist enchant on this, +10 shadow resist. Or you could do like +7 fire resist if you wanted, just for if you're going against a team that has like a pesky fire mage or an annoying warlock. Basically like a glass cannon type caster on the other team. So, oh yes, and then later down the line when AQ comes out, you will have the stealth enchant as well. Which increases your stealth value, so that is nice. Not that great. I wouldn't say that's nearly as good as greater resistance, but it is an option there. For chest piece, Black and Defies armor, Tunic of Westfall. Let's bring a Black and Defies armor. This drops off the last boss in the Dead Mines. Drops off of Van Cleef. 11 stamina, 3 agility, 4 strength, beautiful stats for a rogue chest piece. Just really good. Looks great too. Looks like a ninja outfit or whatever. Now, if you're playing Horde, I would suggest getting 2 of these while you're there. Just pick up 2 of them. You'll go 100 HP on one of them and then 4 stats to all on the other, so that it'll give you some wiggle room with your set if you wanted like an attack power chest and then also like a stam type chest with 100 HP. Now if you're Alliance, you will go Tunic of Westfall, 5 stamina, 11 agility. This is a crazy amount of agility to be picking up on a chest piece at 19. Same amount of armor. But so if you were Alliance, you would want 4 all, plus 4 all to stats on this chest piece for like an attack power, and then you'd want 100 HP on the Black and Defies armor for a stam set. But like I always say in these is you go with what you want. Like if you think that it would be better to stat smooth on your Tunic of Westfall and get 100 HP, and not to mention it's like 80 gold less than plus 4 stats, then do that. But if it were me and I was on Alliance, I would go 4 stats to Tunic of Westfall and 100 to Black and Defias. On my rogue, I just, I'm on Horde, so I got 2 Black and Defias, and I got plus 4 and 100 HP. And honestly, I really never use my 100 HP chest. I pretty much always wear my greater stats. But there may be a situation where I'm like the only, where I would have to be the one in front of the group, like going out in front and taking the damage. And that's not too unlikely either, that I would end up in that type of situation. So that is where I would use it. For bracers, pretty much it's hands down Wrangler Wristbands of the Monkey 3-3. They're going to be hard to find. They are a bind on equip item off the auction house, and they're going to be expensive. They're going to be 60 to 80 gold. If you're on a really competitive server, these things can go for over 100 gold. So the thing is, like, nothing really comes close. There is Forest Leather Bracers, which is 5 agility. Let's bring these up. It's also a BOE off the auction house, but it's just 5 agility. Wrangler Wristbands, 3 agility, 3 stamina. Obviously much better. We also show Wrangler Wristbands of attack power, 10 attack power. That is if you want like a pure attack power set. Now what I did on my rogue is I haven't seen Wrangler Wristbands max roll attack power. And so what I did is I just got Forest Leather Bracers, which are like 2 gold. And then I put 9 strength on them. I enchanted them with 9 strength. So it's 5 agility, 9 strength on those for my attack power bracers. And then I went 9 stamina on my Wrangler Wristbands of the Monkey. Now do note, for the superior strength, enchant is very expensive. Very, very expensive for that, especially since it's a very, it's not exactly PvP oriented enchant. So if you don't have a lot of money to spend, don't get into attack power bracers. But I would say the play for most players is to get Forest Leather Bracers with superior stam, plus 9 stam. That's going to be the cheapest and all around easiest option. For gloves, it's kind of similar. What is going on with that image there? Oh, it's moved somehow. I don't know how that happened. So Scouting Gloves of the Monkey, it's kind of the same thing with bracers for gloves. Scouting Gloves of the Monkey, 4-4, 4 agility, 4 stamina. Same thing with the Wranglers. These are going to be expensive. They're going to be hard to come by. Everyone's going to want them, mainly because they look so dope and they match the Black and Defias armor. You can see right there, they just look, they just look great. Those look good. As opposed to something, my internet's being slow today, something like this. Ugh. What am I, a level 14 in the Barons or something? As opposed to that, yeah. Um, but bristlebark gloves, 4 agility, 4 strength. Okay, trading 4 strength for 4 stam. Obviously, the 4 stam on these are going to be better. Um, Also worth noting, they don't have to be scouting. They could. Oh, what am I doing here? They could be rigid. Rigid gloves can also roll 4/4. My internet's being slow. Rigid gloves can also roll as a 4/4. But yeah, these are all the gloves are auction house items. There's no glove to pick up from a quest. There's no glove to pick up from a dungeon. It's literally just all off the auction house. Now, scouting gloves, they're going to be, I mean, you can get lucky and find them for like 35, 40, but I highly doubt that. Just yesterday, I sold an extra pair I had for 75, just to kind of give you an idea. And they're pretty much only going to get more and more expensive as time goes on. But I was kind of in need for cash, so. And the enchant that should go on that is 7 agility. Enchant is called Greater Agility. 7 agility to that. It's not an expensive enchant, very easy to pick up. And then later on, whenever AQ comes out, you'll have the plus 15 agility enchant that you will override the 7 agility with. So what I did on my rogue is I've got my scouting gloves, and then I also got bristlebark gloves. And the bristlebark are for like an attack power set, and my scouting gloves are for like all around, just a general PvP set. We also show red whelp gloves. And Shadow Power isn't the play. I don't think that's the play anymore because it could be. It could be. I could be wrong. We'll have to see whether or not the scaling on that is appropriate for its use. It might be firepower if the scaling on this is appropriate. Like, it all depends. It's really a weak play, and I just kind of wanted to mention it just because I know there's that really famous Spell Power Rogue video. Just to give you an idea, it's crazy playing a Spell Power Rogue. I made one before, and it's insane. But it's also super weak and super gimp. It's really garbage. Like, on a holistic level, it's garbage. But for like that niche sort of try this out, it's gonna be crazy. Yeah, it is, but it's really not for normal use. It's really just for itching, or scratching that itch. It's really not a good play. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Red Whelp gloves are crafted by a leather worker. You'll find them on the auction house. They're not expensive. For belt, the Screecher belt should say Horde. Should have formatted that with Horde. Anyway, Deviant Scale belt, another auction house item. 6 stam, 5 agility, 3 spirit. It's the best all-around stats. This is crafted by a leather worker, and the leather worker gets it from completing. Is it the Ectoplasm quest? Might be the It's one of the Wailing Caverns quests. Gives you rewards this pattern, and then you would go and create it. Not really expensive. 5 gold is the very most you should ever pay for that. And then for Horde, there is a better option for attack power. If you wanted a pure attack power set, and that would be the Screecher belt. And this is rewarded from Blood Fury Bloodline, which starts with Harpy's Threatens in the Stone Talon Mountains. Requires level 18 to start, so at level 18 you fly up to Sunrock and you pick up the quest and you kill a bunch of Harpies. 721, 828 Harpies out here in the Charred Vale, and then turn that in. And then you go, there's an elite harpy right where my mouse is at, right where the tip of the mouse is at, is where there's an elite harpy right there. You go and you get the remains. Turn that in for the belt, which would be your best option for an attack power belt. Other stats: 5 int, 3 stam, 2 spirit. So yeah, it's also a decent hunter belt as well, and that's horde only. Legs, there's only one leg. There's only one option. That's Leggings of the Fang. This drops off of Lord Cobran and the Wailing Caverns. That's the boss. As soon as you enter into the main cavern, it's the boss off to the left where you gotta like wind around and get to him. It's a really easy farm. It's not a hard item to get. 5 strength, 4 stam, 9 agility. Absurd. Absolutely bonkers in terms of just raw stats on an item. Beautiful, beautiful. Love the stats. Love that the ratio there. It's just perfect. And nothing comes close. And there's no uniqueness, so you can get as many as you want. Like I said, I get one with 100 HP, and then I get a second pair for 8 agility for an attack power set. Let me show that there. For the boots, there's several different options. So for Horde, start out with Trailblazer Boots. 3 stam, 7 agility, leather. It comes from this quest, Horde Presence. But in order to get this quest, you need to kill. I'm sure you've seen. There's the rune scroll. I'm sure you've seen the elites, like the 4 elite pack. They spawn right where the tip of my mouse is at. That's where they spawn. They're the 4 elite alliance, like night elves. I think 2 of them are night elves, and maybe 2 of them are human. That doesn't matter. But basically, they will patrol all of. Well, they won't go up to the crossroads, but they will patrol all the way up, and I believe they go all the way over here, and then like they turn back around and go back down. Arena Swift River is the one of those 4 that you need to kill, who has a 100% chance to drop the rune scroll. This begins at level 15. So what I do is I get to level 10, and then I have someone else kill her for me, and I loot the scroll, and I just bank it until I'm level 15 so I can start it right away. But yeah, and then you go turn it into Kadrak there in the North Barrens, and then he sends you over to to Stonetown Mountains. Oh shoot, let's get Stonetown map pulled back up so I can show you. We'll just go there. Over here in Stonetown, up here in the Stonetown Peak, there's this little cave. And up there, it's the Keymaster, so you don't actually have to go very far. You kill like a mob at the door, and then like 2 more mobs behind it, and then there might be a patrol that you have to kill. But it's basically the first mob that's inside of the den, like in the actual, like first open area, like first room, if you will, of the den. Up there, and that is the Keymaster Ryan Thariel, who which you just have to kill, and then it gives you this flag, Kadrak's flag. It says place in the town den. Just ignore it. It's for RP purposes only. There's no use. You just like do the quest, and then you'll still have it in your bags, and you can delete it if you want. There's nothing. There's no action item that goes along with Kadrak's flag. So, and then you return it back to Kadrak there in the North Barrens, and you get your Trailblazer Boots. 3 stam, 7 agility. These are perfect for Horde. For Alliance, it's kind of a toss-up for Alliance. There's Feet of the Lynx and there's Footpads of the Fang for Alliance. Feet of the Lynx are a BOE off the auction house. They're going to be expensive. Every hunter thinks that they want these. They don't actually want these boots, and it's really kind of annoying. To me, that hunters want these boots just because they see this agility and they're like, agility, but no. This is really a rogue only, and even so, more primarily just for alliance rogues. Um, 8 agility, 3 strength. These are big stats for boots, and they look decent, I guess. And then another option for alliance would be foot pads of the Fang. They look stupid, not gonna lie. They drop off of Lord Serpentis in Wailing Caverns. That's the guy who says, who has like that Jim Morrison reference. The guy right before the big bog monster or whatever. 4 stam, 4 agility. So if we compare, we're dropping 4 agility, we're gaining 4 stam, and we're losing 3 strength. So, you know, it depends really what you're set. I would just pick them up if you're alliance. Just pick them up. They're not hard to pick up, and then just have them there because you might not want to wear Feet of the Lynx all the time, especially if you feel like you're squishy and you need more stam. But like I've got a pair of these Feet of the Lynx, and I went ahead and enchanted them with 7 agility, and I know you're like, oh, you always gotta have minor run. You do always need to have minor run, but I will get to why I enchanted these with 7 agility in a minute. But yeah, basically those are gonna be the two main options for alliance. Personally, if I was alliance, I would go Feed the Lynx with minor run, and then I would also pick these up just for sort of placeholder stamp boots or just sort of general purpose boots. But I would almost always wear these. For Horde, I always wear Trailblazers, and I only use Feed the Lynx for very particular. So you can see I have greater agility there on I don't know if you can tell, but the items that aren't unique and serve a purpose for having a second enchant are like formatted like this, where you know. Anyway, there's also Grizzled Boots on Horde. So we've got these 2 boots here, Draftsmen and Grizzled, with greater stam enchant, and I know you're thinking, Hardington, hello, you have to have minor run at 19, there's no mounts or anything. Yes. And to the point of that, I'm going to explain why I show greater agility on Feet of the Lynx and greater stam on these 2 stam boots. And that is because when ZG comes out, Hakar, the last boss of ZG, drops her heart. And you can take her heart and turn it in on... I forgot the name of the island. That little... the Troll Island. The trolls who hate Hakar for whatever reason. Anyway, you could turn her heart in, and it gives... boy, I'm blanking on the names here. I don't know. It's just called the Heart of Hakar buff. And it gives you 10 10% to stats, 15% movement speed, or it might be 10% movement speed and 15% stats. Regardless, it doesn't matter, because minor speed enchant is 8% movement speed. So whenever you have Heart of Hakar, and now remember, Heart of Hakar will persist through death until next patch. So you're going to have like a good, depending on how long it takes, or not how long it takes them, but how much time Blizzard plans on having between ZG release and next patch. That could be 4 months, it could be 6 months, I don't know. So there's going to be an amount of time where ZG buff will persist through death. And when you have that buff, you don't want your enchant on your boots being overridden by the buffs. Instead, you want your enchant on your boots to be in sync with that buff by picking up stats and getting that multiplier to apply on something like greater agility or something like greater stam, instead of your enchant being null because it's being overwritten by the world buff. So That is why I show the greater agility on Feet of the Lynx and greater stam on these two. Now let's get into the stam boot option for Horde, which is Grizzled Boots. And these come from level 16 Book of This is a SFK quest you pick up in Undercity, just outside the Apothecarium there. This is also the same quest for warriors and their stam. Bracers, but Grizzled Boots, 2 strength, 7 stam. We would enchant that with 7 stam. And these are just a placeholder boot. These aren't like final use boots. They're simply a stam placeholder until you can get Nat Pagel's Extreme England boots. Now, the other item, this would be sort of like the stam item for Alliance, like placeholder stam boots for Alliance, would be Draftsmen Boots, which comes from the Ziz Physics quest line, which begins in Ratchet, off the same guy that can tell you about the glowing shard from Bar Mantle, right next to the Flight Master. Sends you off to Stone Talon. Then you got to get these blueprints from killing operators and turn it in. He sends you back to Ratchet, and then the guy in Ratchet sends you back, and then he tells you to kill Gorinzo, Wrench Whistle, and he spawns up here. If you can see my mouse on the screen, Gorinzo is right here. He spawns on these. You've got to go around this, around that lake, and up through the back, up to these water wheel that's up there, and he's up there. And you just kill him. You get your arm. You turn it back in. 'Tis his physics. Anyway, it gives you Draftsman Boots, 5 stam, 5 strength, and those are just a stam placeholder boot until you can get the Nat Pagel's boots. Nat Pagel boots, 12 stam. You'd want to enchant these with, well, ideally you'll have 2 sets. You'll have one with minor run and then one with stamina. Just depending on whether or not you have the ZG buff, or maybe you go 7 agility on it for, ooh, that would look nice, wouldn't it? Ooh, that would look real nice. 12 stam, 7 agility, plus or times like the 10% or 15%, whatever it is from the ZG buff. That would be hot. But yeah. Anyway, you get the Nat Pagels the same way you get the fishing hat from the STV fishing tournament every Sunday at 2 server time, and it comes out with the ZG patch, and that's when they become relevant as well. But yeah, on my rogue right now, I've just got the Trailblazer Boots and the Feet of the Lynx, and I've got my 7 agility on Feet of the Lynx and minor run on Trailblazer. And I believe I also did the Grizzled Boots with stamina. I would imagine so. I'll double check them. I'm gonna do like a whole video on my rogue later down the line, because there's some other things that I just wanted to talk about, like playing rogue and the thing do's and don'ts basically of playing rogue. And then we also show Goblin rocket boots. It's not necessarily required to have the speed enchant on them because they break, and when they break you lose the enchant. It's kind of irritating if you don't have an enchanter who will just do this for you. If you have to tip somebody every time, I don't know how worth it would be. Yeah. But yeah, they're crazy. I love them. People get really mad when you use them and they don't break. People get like really triggered, and it's kind of funny, but they are prone to explode, so use with caution. A lot of fun. You can make a lot of really crazy plays happen with Goblin rocket boots. An engineer creates those. Okay, now we're on to the rings. For Horde and Alliance, both have starting rings, seal starting rings. For Horde, it's Seal of Sylvanas. For Alliance, it's Seal of Ren. For Horde, the Seal of Sylvanas at level 18, Arugel Must Die. You pick it up in the Sepulture. There in Silverpine Forest, you go into SFK, you kill the last boss, Arugel, you get his head, turn it back in, boom, 8 stam, 3 strength. Beautiful stats for a ring at 19. For Alliance, the ring is Seal of Ren, and it's a lot more difficult. Or I shouldn't say difficult, I should say effort. It is a lot more effort to get this ring than the Seal of Sylvanas. So 4 stam, 3 spirit, 3 agility, 3 strength, 4 int. Really good ring. But why I say it's a lot of effort is because it's quite a quest line. You can see there's is that, and then boom, there it is. The first 8-part chain opens up the 4-part chain. And it starts with the unsent letter, which drops off of Van Cleef, and I believe it's a 100% chance to drop. Only usable by Alliance guys, so if you're Horde, don't go trying to. You can pick the item up, the unsent letter, but obviously you can't do anything with it. I'm not going to go through the whole quest chain, but just realize it starts at level 16, so get it at 16 and start it at 16. Don't dilly-dally around, because it's a lot of XP. And you definitely don't want to be doing this at level 19. I'm most certain it'll level you if you try doing this at level 19. Let me know in the comments if anybody's actually done this at 19. I doubt that it's that's a lot of XP, man. I don't think that would be possible. But yeah, anyway, that's the two seal rings. And then generally what you would use, you'll use like Seal Sylvanas on Horde, and you'll couple that with Legionnaires, or Seal Ren on Alliance and couple that with Protectors. So let's take a look at the Warsong Reward Ring. This is at Honored, the same reputation that's required for the Neckpiece. It is 4 strength, 4 agility, 2 stamina. Beautiful stats, really good. This is at Honored with Warsong, so obviously we're not there yet. And a good placeholder until then would be something like the Meadow Ring of the Monkey, 3/3. This is going to be expensive. Expect to be paying a minimum of 20-25 gold, all the way up to like 60 gold for something like this. We also show Meadow Ring of the Tiger if you wanted like an attack power ring. There's also Meadow Ring of Agility, 5 agility. It's not going to be as expensive. And it's generally pretty easy, a lot easier to get than Meta. It seems to be there are more 5 agility rolls than monkey rolls, which is kind of odd, but just the way it is. And then if you don't want to have any of those, there's also the Blood Ring, which is just a static 5 stam. Internet's being slow. And this is off the auction house as well, just static 5 stam there. So you got the Seal Ring. Both factions are going to start out with those and use them. And until you can get the Honored Ring, you use something like Meadow Ring of the Monkey or of the Tiger or of Agility. And then if you don't want to spend the money on those, you can always just wear Blood Ring. Or if you want something, that was just like a lot of stam, you could pick up Blood Ring. Trinkets, Arena Grandmaster. You get, sorry, let's look at the stats. Static dodge, 1 dodge on it, and then an on-use shield absorbs 750 to 1250 damage, lasting 20 seconds, 30-minute cooldown. Really good. I was dueling people. I was saying, like, Hardington in the best 19, come duel me for, if you win you get 5 gold, but if you lose your name goes on the wall of shame. And this motherfucker comes out here, and I had won like 30 something in a row, duels in a row of other 19s, and this motherfucker comes out, and I didn't even think about it, and he pops his AGM on me, and I didn't even like think to look, and he ended up winning. The duel is the only duel I've lost. Is the first duel I lost because this asshole went and, he's not an asshole, he's a nice guy, but yeah, it can turn the tide. It can definitely turn the tide. Do be aware though, this can be dispelled. Do not use it around priest or shaman, if you're Alliance shaman. But yeah, just watch it. If you're around a priest who knows what he's doing, do not use that. It'll be a waste of a 30-minute cooldown. And then there's also Minor Recombobulator. This is what everybody is going to start out with. This dispels polymorph, but nobody uses it for that. You use it for the 150 to 250 health and mana. A Recombobulator, obviously. 10 charges on it. Not very difficult to make. What is difficult, however, is getting the pattern on Horde. So Blizzard really screwed up here, and they don't have it spawning off of the Ratchet vendor that it should be spawning off of for Horde to have it. So Horde have no possible way of getting this other than to have a friend on Alliance who can transfer it to them over the neutral auction house. And so me and my buddy, we made like at least 100 gold off of transferring these. We transfer them over. I'd sell them for like 30 gold on the Horde auction house, so he's buying them for like 2 gold on Alliance. But yeah, do be aware for Horde players that is going to be difficult to get the pattern for. And then obviously the insignia of the Horde or Alliance. I guess we can take a look at its effect. Oh, that is the Hunter insignia. Oh, here's the Rogue one. Dispels Charm. There are no charms? No. There are no charms at 19. Fear, obviously. Polymorph, obviously. So Fear and Poly kind of big. I kind of wish it would remove slows and stuns, but, you know, Fear and Poly is alright. Poly's a real pain as a rogue at 19. Fear's not so bad, especially if you're playing Undead, because there's, first off, there's not all that many fears. But Poly, there's always Polys, and they're so irritating. But yeah, insignia. So, on to weapons. Let's get out of this 200%. Let's go to 150 so we can just get it better. So I've gotten kind of autistic on these weapons. Shadow Fang. I don't know what exactly I can tell you about Shadow Fang that isn't blatantly apparent. It is so unreal. I mean, I've always said, in my opinion, it is the #1 best item. It's better than AGM. It's better than the wand that casters use. It is the best item in the bracket, hands down, in my opinion. It's better than Lucky Fishing Hat. It's like, there's no item in my opinion that comes close to Shadow Fang. It's stupid amount of DPS. It is the perfect swing speed. And it has a chance on hit. There really aren't many items or many weapons that have a chance on hit. And it pairs up perfectly. The 30 shadow damage pairs up perfectly with a life-stealing proc, which is what you should have enchanted on your Shadow Fang. There was a guy today, I'm an enchanter on my main, and I saw this guy post in trade, oh, looking for enchanter, Crusader ×2. And I was like, oh yeah, because usually people tip 10 gold for Crusader, something easy 20 gold. So I invite him, and I see it's a 19 rogue, and I see he's got Shadow Fang. And I was like, oh dude, like, don't go Crusader, man. And I ended up talking him from the ledge for wasting all that gold on Crusader, and I convinced him to go life-stealing. And this is kind of a big point of this rogue guide, really one of the more important points that I want to address. You'll notice Crusader isn't even on this list. And the biggest reason is because Crusader for a two-hander is beautiful, is really, really good. And if you don't know, Crusader, whenever it procs, it heals you for 100 health, and it also gives you a buff of 100 strength for like 20 seconds, I think. Which seems crazy, right? Like, that's just unreal. But the problem is that when it's on a one-hander, the proc rate is reduced significantly to where basically it never really procs as on a 19 rogue with a 2.7 speed weapon. The thing never really procs, and when it does, it's like it didn't even matter. It's like it wasn't even there. Like, okay, now I've got, you know, the 100 extra attack power, but what? I mean, it's really not good. And the 100 health, whenever it procs, it'll heal you for 100. That's really nice, but the thing is, life stealing heals you way better. Life stealing, if you don't know, heals you for when it procs, it heals you for 30, and it does 30 shadow damage to the person it procs off of. And so you instantly create a 60 health gap between you and the person that it just procced off of, which is so much bigger than the amount of added damage the 100 attack power would do. Like, if you get a Crusader proc on a 19 rogue and you're using Shadow Fang, I think it'll add maybe 20 damage per swing, which is great. That's a huge amount. But it's not nearly enough to compare to lifestealing. And you'll notice, like, 60s don't ever use, like, 60 rogues never use lifestealing. And they always have Crusader. And the reason why they don't use lifestealing is because of the not magnitude's not the right word. It's not scaling either. I want to say ratio, but that's not quite the word that that conveys it. We'll just say ratio. 30 damage and 30 heal. Like, so, okay, so 30 damage. When you compare that to the amount of health, a 60, just your average 60, if they're in PvP gear, they're anywhere from 4 to 5k. So 30 damage against 4 to 5k is basically nothing. But whenever you're going against people with 900 to 1200 health, 30, like, that ratio of 30 damage to 900 1200 is significantly more than 30 damage to 4 to 5k, right? And so that's why you'll never see a level 60 using lifestealing. And also because they use the same weapon usually for PvP as they do in PvE, and Crusader has what will give you better return in a PvP, or sorry, a PvE scenario. But that's why lifestealing over Crusader. Now, we talk about lifestealing versus fiery enchant, and sorry I'm not talking too much about weapons right now, but the enchants are really important to go over, because I see so many people doing it incorrectly. And the thing is, I've tried out all the weapons, and I've tried all the different combinations with enchants, and I feel like I've done way more testing of this stuff than anybody else, and that's why I feel so strongly about it. And I've also played Classic 19 Rogue for the past 6 years, and I've seen it. I've played with all the different stuff, and I've seen, like, what's the best stuff, and it's Shadow Fang with lifestealing, hands down. Now, you'll see I've got fiery here, right below lifestealing, and ideally, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got 4 Shadow Fangs. Ideally, but that's not really like, nobody's gonna have 4 Shadow Fangs, and if you do, then hats off to you. But that's a lot of gold, especially for that last enchant. But so fiery definitely has a place. So if you're gonna get 2 Shadow Fangs, which I would say get 2, your first one, get lifestealing, and that's gonna be your primary one. On your second one, I get fiery weapon on it, and you would use this for your burst set. So for like your attack power set, this is when you would want fiery, because fiery procs at the same rate that lifestealing procs, but excuse me. The thing is, fiery is going to end up doing more damage, more DPS than lifestealing will. Lifestealing is much better for just general purpose all around PvP because it heals you. And you'll see in some of my recordings of my rogue where I just get like 4 life-stealing procs in a row, and it's just so nasty. It's just for 120 health, just like within a global, is stupid. But the thing is, fiery procs the same rate that lifestealing does. The only difference is it procs for 40 damage instead of 30. So it'll do more DPS than lifestealing. So if you're playing with a dedicated healer, you would rather be wearing a fiery Shadow Fang as opposed to a lifestealing Shadow Fang, because your healer will take care of your healing, and it allows you to do more damage, more burst damage. So if you're going on a flag carrier, healer or no healer, it's better to be using fiery to burst somebody. Of course, it's situational in how many people they have versus if it's just you, or But fiery's going to be better for just raw damage, raw burst. Lifestealing's going to be better for general purpose, all around like gameplay. And then we also show steel weapon chain. Now I'm curious, because Blizzard has screwed up. Okay, so it's not showing. Yeah, so it's applicable. I'm not going to get into how much I dislike Blizzard right now. But basically, a blacksmith makes a steel weapon chain, can apply it to your weapon, making it immune to disarm. And so if you're going up against a warrior with who has half a brain, he will disarm you because you're the biggest threat in terms of damage. It's the best place to disarm. And wouldn't it be a beautiful thing to have a Shadow Fang with a steel chain on it? So he comes up to disarm you, and you swap on that. You swap on that Shadow Fang, and he drops it, and it says immune. It's like, oof, you just wasted 20 rage and a lot of time. But well, we do show it because it does have that specific use. Although, is it necessarily worth, spending the extra 200, 300 gold on another Shadow Fang just for that one occasion? Maybe it'll be worth if you have the money. And we also show Fiery Blaze, and this is more for memes. Enchants weapon to do 15% chance to inflict 9 to 14 fire damage to all enemies in a 3-yard radius. This is only acquirable by Alliance, and you can only get one of these per Alliance character. So if you wanted it on Horde, you would have to have the Shadow Fang purchased on Alliance, enchanted on Alliance, and then transferred over the neutral auction house. But if you're able to do this, if you're able to get that on Horde, just big props, like huge style points if you can do that. But yeah. And I guess you could say, like, in a situation where you have more than 4 people clumped, more than 4 enemies clumped together, it could be argued that it would be better to use Fiery Blaze than like Fiery Weapon in that situation, because you would then end up doing more DPS with that enchant. But yeah. Anyway. And then we show Assassin Blade, and don't get it twisted. We're not showing Assassin Blade here as like a permanent main hand, no. We're showing it here exclusively with superior striking. And no, backstab is not, like, you shouldn't even have backstab on your bars. It's so garbage at 19. And I think people believe it's a thing to do because it's like the way to play. It's a thing to do at 60, but it's not at all a thing for 19s. But anyway, we show Assassin Blade with superior striking. That's +5 damage. It's the max damage enchant you can get. And I've got this on my 19. What I use it for is if I catch, particularly a clothy, if I catch someone sitting, eating and drinking, whenever somebody is sitting, eating and drinking, the next attack against them is a guaranteed crit. I'm not sure, I believe it's the same for spells as well. But anyway, I know it's for sure for physical. When somebody is sitting, the next attack against them is a guaranteed crit. So, probably already put 1 and 2 together here. Yeah, you throw on the Assassin Blade while you're stealth, go up and ambush them while they're sitting, you know, crit them for 200, 300 damage. So, I guess now that we've gone over that, it's important to note that if they are not sitting, it's not necessarily going to be better to throw on your Assassin Blade and ambush. Mainly because you shouldn't be opening with ambush, you should be opening with a sap. Almost all the time. Like if there's more than one person there, you should be opening with a sap. But, you know, if it was say it's just like one person, and your ambush does not crit, you would have done more damage with a garrote. So it's almost always going to be better to open with a garrote. The only time it would be better to open with ambush is if the person is sitting. And so that's why we show Assassin Blade with superior striking for that particular moment. Now, you can come across this moment quite a bit if you're chasing down flag carriers and they find like a little spot to sit and drink. You come across that scenario quite often. And usually the healer's like taking some damage as well, and it's a great opportunity to just open up, burst them, and just bonk them right there. But yeah. We also show the Stinging Viper, and we show life stealing on it. This is just like if you want to play 19 rogue and you're not really trying to drop 200 gold. Like for some people that's completely ridiculous, and I totally understand that. And if that's you, then you want to use the Stinging Viper. And this also has another use for it too, which would talk about. It's a chance on hit, but Stinging Viper drops off of Lord Pythos in the Wailing Caverns. It's a 2.8 mace, and it's 15.5 DPS, 57 top end. Now actually compare that to Shadow Fang, top end of 55. It has the highest top end, I believe. I'm most certain it's the highest top end. Anyway, if you're not getting a Shadow Fang, you use this. But this also has a second, another reason to be using this, even if you already have a Shadow Fang, is for this poisons. Poisons a chance on hit to poison a target for 7 nature damage every 3 seconds for 15 seconds. So this is in the event that you are up against another rogue and you've got him pretty low, and you know he's going to gouge and bandage soon. You can pop this on, get that poison, and completely well, he'll still be able to get at least 1 tick of bandage off, but you'll prevent a full bandage by using this poison. And it's basically anybody, can be used against anybody who you believe is very soon to bandage. Because as rogue, you don't have like a rend, or like, you know, a Shadow Word Pain, or a cursive, or some sort of dot. Like, you don't have a dot that you can apply. And so that's why the Stinging Viper is why we show that there. And we would suggest a life stealing with that, just because it's all around the best main hand enchant. And then we also show Evocator's Blade with Icy Chill, and the reason is because of the speed of Evocators is a 1.6. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you want like a slow, you can go for it. I really don't think as a rogue you really need to be using a slow. But we went ahead and put that there because we know it is a concern for some people to have a weapon and have Icy Chill in order to slow people. But the thing is, Icy Chill is kind of it's not that great. I believe it's a 30% movement speed. It's not going to tell us here, but I'm pretty sure it's like a 30%, which is less than all the other slows, hamstring and wing clip and mage armor. I'm pretty sure it's less than all of them. So it's like, even if it, excuse me, even if it does proc, it's like, I don't know if it's necessarily going to help you catch a mage, warrior, or hunter. But yeah, I don't know. We just put that there just for Icy Chill fans. Now for the offhand. And this comes down to, so you see I've got Assassin Blade down here. This is kind of personal between Assassin Blade and Cruel Barb. I've got a friend who, he's one of the best rogues, he's one of the best players to ever do it, and he swears by, you know, he swears on that Assassin Blade is better than Cruel Barb, and I swear that Cruel Barb is better in the offhand than Assassin Blade. The truth is that they're both so close. They're both totally viable, and they are so close that it's hardly even worth having the argument over. Not that like we had a, you know, like we got stiff with each other just because, you know, we were he thinks Assassin Blade is better than Cruel, and I think Cruel is better than Assassin. But there are several reasons why I believe Cruel to be better. Now, we tested it. We had it to where we were both, you know, female undead, and we wore nothing. We had no gear on. And he had Assassin in his offhand, no main hand, and I had Cruel in my offhand, no main hand, no gear. And we sat there, and we just sat there and auto-attacked each other. Like for, I don't know, we did it for like 3-4 hours this one night. And some of the duels I beat him, some of the duels he beat me. But we found that in the duels where I beat him, it was by a very tiny, it was within 1%. In the duels that he beat me, it was within like 3%. So we decided to basically, you know, that pretty much over the course of like 800 damage, Assassin Blade ends up doing like 1% more damage. And the reason being is because of the added agility. So let's just take a look at the stats, because I know a lot of people, you know, I know everybody believes Assassin Blade to be better. And there's a reason why, and I'm going to get to the reasons, but let's look at the stats. You'll see they're very similar. A 15.5 DPS, 15.5 DPS, 12 attack power, 7 attack power. So Cruel Barb has, what is that, 5 more attack power than Assassins, but Assassins has 4 agilities worth of crit. And so that 4 agilities worth of crit ends up doing about 1% more damage than Cruel Barb. However, that was in a duel where we just sat there, and there was no movement, there was no like weaving, there was no like going in and out of hitboxes. And so when you're going in and out of hitboxes, which is regular PvP, like style of PvP, you're going to capitalize more on a slower hitting weapon as you move in and out of hitboxes. So imagine you go out of somebody's hitbox for 3 seconds, you'll end up missing, or well, let's just make it 4 seconds since that'd be easier. So say you're out of someone's hitbox for 4 seconds. You're going to miss, like, 2 of your swings won't hit with Assassin, whereas only 1 of your hits won't hit with Cruel if you're out of like a hitbox for 4 seconds. And so whenever you come back in, you're now hitting with a 2.8 swing speed. So basically, how do I put this? When you come back into someone's hitbox, you're going to hit them statically for double the amount of damage of the, well, not quite double, but well, it's not quite. It's a little less than double. You're going to be hitting them harder whenever you come back into that hitbox, because your swing timer would have already been queued in your time outside of their hitbox. So whenever you come back in, it's going to hit harder and do more burst damage. And kind of the main reason why I believe Cruel Barb to be better is because it results in more burst damage. And if you remember to the very beginning of this video, what I said was Rogue's strongest attribute and their purpose was that Rogue has the highest burst damage potential. And because of that, they are, the burst class. They're the one that can do this crazy amount of damage. And if you know anything about PvP, you know that burst damage is what makes plays. That's what shakes things up. Because it's much harder for a healer to keep up with burst damage than it is for a healer to keep up with very easy to predict little trickle damage from a dagger. Whenever it's a sword coming in, whacking them, for a bunch of health, it's like, it makes them. It's just better, in my opinion, in that regard, that a sword is going to be more burst damage than an assassin blade. One, for like that going in and out of the hitboxes. Now, if you had 100% uptime on the hitbox, assassin blade will be 1% better. But if you don't have that 100%, uptime inside of their hitbox or on their hitbox, Cruel's going to be better. Anyway, there was some other reason too that I can't quite remember. Oh, one of the biggest reasons, I guess, is that Cruel is free. You just have to go farm it off of Van Cleef, Last Boss and Dead Mines. And Assassin's like 200, 300 gold. It's a BOE off the auction house. So, I mean, there's that reason too. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to make enemies and tell people they're wrong about stuff. Because the truth is, like, both of these are perfectly viable. But I think, 1% more damage versus, the weapon that's more in line with your class's purpose. I don't know. Up to you. Either one of those. But we also show Stinging Viper there. It's also an option. But agility, 15 agility is going to be the enchant that you're going to want on that. That's not out yet. I believe it comes out with BWL patch. Could be wrong. It could be the patch after. But we also have fiery and life stealing. Yeah, kind of straightforward. I mean, agility is hands. It's like you want to be life stealing main hand, agility offhand. Double life stealing, like that's what I'm rocking right now, and I love it. I totally love double life stealing. So, I mean, but really any of them are just fine. There's also Furbolg Medicine Pouch. I mean, if you're flag carrying and you want like extra stam, you're really not going to be using an offhand while flag carrying all that much. It could be argued that 10 stam would be better. Everglow Lantern for the RP, Totem of Affliction, you know, sort of just flag carrying RP offhands there. Here we go at ranged weapons, and then we'll be done here. Keen Throwing Knife, hands down. Might not be the best throwing weapon, but the point here is that it's throwing weapon and not bow or gun. That throwing weapon is much better, and I'll have a video where whenever I do like a rogue do's and don'ts video, I'll show you why. Because throwing weapons, number one, you keep warriors in combat. If a warrior knows what he's doing, he's gonna hamstring you, and he's gonna dead zone you. Because, you know, at 60 it's the other way around, because they have crippling. That's anyway. But at 19, the warrior can dead zone you. He'll hamstring you and dead zone you. Wait for that combat to drop, step out, and then charge in and get the stun on you, and then the swing. And with a keen throwing knife, it makes it very difficult for them to do that, mainly because of how much quicker the cast time is for a throwing weapon as it is for a bow or a gun. It's a whole second quicker than the others, which is everything. It also, now it used to be, it used to have even more of a reason for being better. It used to be that, and the thing is, it's screwed up now with the way batching works. Like, you can't jump and throw. It's kind of hard to explain. So basically, the play would be if you were rogue on rogue, or really anything other than a caster, you could throwing weapon strafe back, and there's a whole thing, and I'll put that in the do's and don'ts videos of basically strafe running backwards, is so that you don't have your back towards the person who's attacking you, and you could weave in throwing weapons while strafing backwards, strafe running backwards, and so you could get like a sizable health gap by just doing that. Yeah, but also because it's the fastest throwing weapon, and what do you really use ranged weapons for as a rogue? To interrupt bandages, to keep people in combat, and that's mainly it. But yeah. And what do you use? I mean, and then we just copy pasted the ranged weapons for, like, you know, their rankings. And Venom Strike could arguably be above Bow Plunder. I'm still not convinced. I see all these hunters using Venom Strike now, and the thing is, like, they seem weak as can be right now. Even though the Venom Strike has the proc, they seem so weak. I don't know what's going on. I think it has to do with leeway. There's a lot of bad mechanics in this version of Classic. But yeah, what do you really use these for? You know, when somebody's running away at, like, you know, 2% health, you throw out, you pull out the bow and you shoot them for like the headshot kill. But I don't see any point of, other than that, of using like a bow. Like, it's almost always the throwing knife. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but yeah. Gosh, I feel like I'm in a bad mood now after going on about that. Anyway, that's the rogue guide. I'll catch y'all in the next video.